HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org. Well, hello. Welcome to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer, and it is Wednesday, March 6th, 2024. And this is our 382nd episode of this series, which is dedicated to behind-the-scenes talent in the hospitality industry. Today, I am back at our Heritage Radio studio in the backyard of Roberta's Pizza in Brooklyn, New York. And I have a wonderful guest with me today who's a TV personality who has been named one of the most influential people in food. And I will introduce her fully in a moment. First, as I do in every show, I will start out with my PR tip. Then later, we'll have my speed round game, industry news discussion, solo dining experience, and the final question. As the founder of Bayer Public Relations, I'm going to tip the show off with my PR tip of the week. So today's tip is to commit to only what you want to do. Yes, that's right. Let's do what we love. But now the tricky part here is not with following our passions and giving it our all, but with figuring out what it is that motivates us and will make us excited to wake up every day and get working. Before we can fully dive into anything, we must know what it is. So let's do some soul searching, find our thing, and then totally commit. As being all in to what moves us is a commitment worth pursuing. That's my tip today.
I love that tip.
My guest loves the tip, and that makes me super happy. And that is Nilou Motamed.
Hi.
I'm so thrilled to have you here. Let me share with the guests a little bit about you. So Nilou is an Emmy-nominated TV personality who has been named one of Adweek's 30 most influential people in food and has been shaping the conversation in food and travel for more than 20 years. Born in Iran and raised in Paris and New York, Nilou has served as editor-in-chief of Food and Wine, as well as the award-winning food site Epicurious, and was a longtime features director for Travel and Leisure. Today, she is a frequent judge on some of the most popular culinary TV shows, and that's including Netflix Iron Chef, Quest for an Iron Legend, Food Network's Chopped, and Bravo's Top Chef. She also co-founded a consultancy called Story Collective, and we will hear all about that and everything she's been up to. Hi, Nilou. Welcome to the show.
Hi. I'm so happy to be here on this gloomy day, but your smile is bringing all the sunshine right into the studio.
Right back at you. Thank you. I mean, it's so wonderful to be here with you in person, and you're someone I've wanted to have on the show for so long. So here we are.
Well, that's so sweet of you to say. I'm honored to be here. And I just want to go back to your tip. I think that I know we have lots of stuff to cover, but I do think it's really, really important to laser focus on the thing that gives you joy and is the thing that you really want to be doing. It's so tempting these days we were just talking about the idea of being multi-hyphenates. And it's so tempting because you wear so many hats to say yes to everything and to be a little bit of a pleaser in that regard. And I think it's really important when you set your path to be hyper-focused on what it is that you want to do and then kind of get rid of the distractions, because from point A to point B, there's a million little stops you could make. And those are gratifying, and they can be, but they can also be a distraction from where you want to head. And I think your tip is wonderful.
Thank you. Well, I was thinking of you with my tip, knowing a little bit about you, and I thought it would register with you. So I'm really glad it did, because if it didn't, I would be, oops, didn't get that one right. But that means a lot. And so for me, because I feel we have similar careers, yet completely different. I mean, we're obviously under this umbrella in the culinary hospitality space, and I think we both love what we do. But for me, I fell into everything I've done kind of by accident, I say. Like, I was following a love for restaurants and the hospitality world, which led me to PR, podcast, book now, and just everything I've been doing. So take us back with what led you to, I mean, we have so much to talk about, but to get to where we are today. But what was it initially growing up as a child? Like, did you know you wanted to work in the culinary space?
Oh my gosh. How many hours do we have for this conversation?
Well, because I don't think there's a show coming in straight after us, I think we could talk as long as we want.
No, I think we can try to keep it in check.
Okay.
I think to answer your question, it's really funny because I know I just said you got to be laser focused, but then the flip side of that is you also have to say yes. And so I think I'm a little bit of a double-edged sword in that regard, in that my entire career kind of happened by accident and because I said yes to a lot of things. And so growing up, I had no idea about being a magazine editor. I had no idea about being a TV personality or even being on television. In my family, we are pretty straightforward in terms of lawyers, doctors, that, kind of engineers. And so I was kind of intending on going down some path like being a lawyer. And then I worked for a judge and I absolutely loved it. I loved the idea of coming to work every day and learning. That was really fun. And so I was going to go to law school, and then I got into law school and I was working at that point at a law firm, and I had a big aha moment, which was, oh my God, I'm going down the wrong path. This is not my path. This is the path that I sort of imagined was the path that was laid out for me. And so then there was that moment of, okay, well, I know what I don't want to do, but what do I do? And that's the part that I really had no idea about. And I always loved to read magazines, but honestly had never even known anyone who had worked in magazines or had an internship even. And so I started working at a magazine called Manhattan File as an intern. I worked, I feel like this is such a funny story, considering we're talking about being in the hospitality space, but I worked in the closet where they kept the magazines. I was a fact checker, and I was an internship where I didn't get paid. So I didn't get paid to work in a closet where the magazines were kept. And then the only other thing in that closet was a microwave, and all day long people would come in and microwave their lunches. And so you can imagine it was like Thai food, Chinese food, Indian food, just like on repeat. But what it allowed me to do is learn. And I realized that is a through line through my entire career, is I've always wanted to grow and learn. And so I started there, and then met this incredible guy, one of my early mentors, a guy named Jesse Kornbluth, who was a writer and an editor and a brilliant writer, and early someone who wrote very early about Bob Marley, like kind of traveled around with Bob Marley and wrote about him. And I met him, and he hired me to be an editor at something called AOL.
Oh, I've heard of it. I still have Shari Bayer at AOL.com too.
That's amazing. So this was back when AOL came on those discs and that you had to, I mean, now I'm really aging myself, but you had to do dial up and it was like I won't do the sound. It was a book site called the Book Report. And that was my first bona fide experience of being an editor, of having an idea and then executing it. And I loved it. I loved it. And then proceeded a series of jobs online until I was like, I can go to magazines now. I know what I'm doing. I actually am a good editor. I can go to magazines. And I went and got a job at a women's sports and fitness magazine called Women's Sports and Fitness at Condé Nast, which doesn't exist any longer. And at the time, a woman named Lucy Danziger was the editor-in-chief. And you had to do, if anyone who's listening, and a lot of people don't know because a lot of people are not in media, you have to do an edit test as a young editor. And so when you want a job as an editor, you have to show that you can produce for that job before you get the job.
Yeah.
And so I had to do an edit test, and I did a really great job on it. And I over-delivered. And at that, I remember in the meeting where I got offered the job, Lucy said, "You have no experience in doing this thing that we do, but what I can see is that you'll always over-deliver, and that's why I'm hiring you." And so that became my mantra: over-deliver, always over-deliver. And so fast forward, I ended up at Travel and Leisure magazine in 2000 as a pretty junior editor, as an associate editor, and not necessarily the youngest person on the team. And that's when I finally was in a place where I was like, oh, this is actually what I'm passionate about. All this time I've been doing work that I love, but not a topic that I love. And now I'm in a place, Travel and Leisure, where I'm obsessed with this topic, the idea of travel and luxury travel, and then layering in food, this was the year 2000. It was really nascent to be talking about food as a conduit to travel. It was always, you go on trips and then you book your restaurants. I started the conversation of like, what if the goal is the food and the trip is just the way that you get there?
Yeah.
And
I love that.
And so that's where I became eventually in the over delivering and saying yes. I said yes to everything. So I would come in, I think my colleagues would come in at 10 in the morning. I'd come in at 7 in the morning. I would work late. I started doing TV really early. I would do segments on I don't know, networks that don't even exist anymore, like WPIX. I would do 5:30, 6 in the morning segments, then come
representing the magazine.
Yeah. And that meant that I had to, get up at 4 in the morning, do my own hair and makeup, all that stuff, show up, and then go to work and then have the full day. And then, about our industry, it's so event focused and relationship focused. And so work lunches. And back then it was like, you'd have a work lunch and you'd be invited to Ducasse, or you'd have a work lunch and you'd be invited to Danielle.
Yeah, you got the good invites.
I mean, listen.
I was doing the invites at the time because at that time I was in PR, but we came up in this industry pretty much the same time frame. And so, yes, I remember that. I remember doing PR, and then you'd work all day at the office and you'd have to get ready to go to the event at night.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I'm back at that day where I got up at 3, did TV, showed up at the office, lowest man on the totem pole, hustle. Don't get to be in the editorial meetings necessarily. Don't get to be part of the conversation. Then do the work all day, then show up at an event at night. Where you're, wearing the unnecessarily tall high heels and trying to, the travel industry back then was very male focused. And so it was lots of hotel GMs who had to take you seriously. And at the time I was not even 30. And so I had to really make sure that I knew my stuff. So lots of doing homework in advance of going to these events so that you could speak to people, at their level. It helps that I speak 4 languages, so that definitely has always helped.
That we don't have in common.
Well,
that's so impressive. That's amazing.
I think it's been incredibly helpful in my career, and it's incredibly helpful in relationship building. And so if I were to give anybody any advice, is learn another language. I think even as an adult, it's not too late. I fake it now in Italian, but I'd like to actually, that's my next goal is to get better at Italian.
I fake a little Italian and Spanish. Those are the two I know a little of.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, but being speaking 4 languages that's as I said, impressive. And what you're saying about over delivering, actually today, I'm glad you like my tip, because that almost was my tip today, because I knew that about you, but I try not to repeat tips, and I had used that one, so I went with the other. But it's so important what you're saying. I mean, you over delivered, and you got noticed, and you definitely brought you to new levels, new opportunities.
I talk about this a lot with friends who have pivoted out of what they traditionally studied. For example, friends who trained as chefs but no longer cook in kitchens and do TV primarily. And I do think it's about just being present also, and just really engaged. And so, I mean, there's a lot of this whole. I know that maybe quiet quitting is over now, but that whole idea of quiet quitting, to me, it feels like, why? I mean, then just leave that job. Don't work there. If it's not something that makes you happy to be there, then obviously we obviously have to pay our rents, and we have commitments and responsibilities. But to me, the number of hours that we spend at work, whether you work for yourself, whether you work in a corporate environment, you have to make your own space. At least that's what I did. And I was given that opportunity over and over again by being engaged, being present, being proactive, over delivering. And it really, I mean, it did some amazing things for me. 14 years, I kept on growing at Travel and Leisure, which is a crazy number of years to be at one place.
In a magazine. And I mean, it's a long time. And you were traveling a lot too.
Traveling a lot and doing TV. I did a TV show on Travel Channel. I still was doing morning TV. I eventually ended up being kind of regular as a travel spokesperson on the Today Show for the magazine.
That's awesome.
It was.
It's awesome.
I am blessed. I'm so lucky, but I do think that you get the opportunities that you show up for, and so I was very eager and enthusiastic, and I think I'm a little bit of a pleaser, and so I was like more, and it worked well for me. It happened that I had this amazing editor-in-chief, Nancy Novograd.
I remember that name.
Who is incredible. And she's one of my husband and my dearest friends still. She takes credit for setting us up because we met at work. And she is a great model of how to just excel in any industry. She was really a leader in an early time as a woman in the travel industry. And she made me the food editor of the magazine when there'd never been a food editor before. I eventually became features editor, features director. And by the time Instagram rolled around in 2011, which is when we really just all got, into the vortex of, showing your plates of food.
It's hard to believe. It's like, I mean, it's hard to believe it seems like Instagram now has been around forever, but that didn't exist. The phones, the pictures of everything we eat didn't exist back then.
I remember, So totally I remember super vividly going to El Bulli for dinner in Spain. And obviously we all know El Bulli. Like, if you don't know El Bulli, you should look it up. But also, I mean, it's like going to Noma now, I guess. I didn't take a single picture of any of my food, not one photograph.
Then did it really happen?
No, it's true.
I'm kidding.
There was one guy in the restaurant who had a proper camera, and he was taking pictures of the food, and we kind of all looked at him. We're like, "What's wrong with that guy?"
Yeah,
But I mean, look at how far we've come. I took a picture of my breakfast this morning in my house. We've come a long way. But I will say, do you remember Jeffrey Steingarten?
Of course, yes.
So I'm indebted to him because when I started at Travel and Leisure, I didn't know anything about the food world. So I was at a food magazine, and therefore, technically, I was at a travel magazine, so I didn't necessarily need to know about food, but that was really my passion. And I met Jeffrey early on at an event at L'Espinasse, and another one of those glorious
Yes.
things that I'm not going to say no to if I get invited. And I said, I'm obsessed with your writing. I've been reading you forever. And can we just hang out? And he was so kind and so generous with his time. And so we would go to lunches and dinners. He introduced me to Pierre Hermé at the time. And I mean, I had never met Pierre Hermé. And like one after another, we had these incredible conversations about food. And he is so exacting and so specific. But he somehow found me good enough company. And actually,
Wow.
that's how I met the lovely Gail Simmons.
That was what I was about to ask, if you overlapped with her time there working with Jeffrey.
So
Okay.
Jeffrey is known to have a series of incredibly bright assistants who helped him with his recipe development and recipe testing for Vogue. And every single one of them is like overeducated, over-indexed on skills. And one of them at the time was Gail Simmons. And so Gail, back in the day, I would see her when I would go to Jeffrey's. And every once in a while, she would make us our dinner reservations. And that's how I met Gail. And that's how eventually we ended up becoming dear friends.
I have to share with you a little fun fact. And I mentioned this when I had Gail on the show and we were talking about Jeffrey. I interviewed to be his assistant for that job. I didn't get it, for whatever reason, or wasn't meant to be. But I remember going to his apartment and making me an espresso. Like I have like the visuals of it, and yeah, I talked about that with Gail.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I mean, honestly, what an honor and what an opportunity. An encyclopedic knowledge of food, and a real passion for it, a real gusto.
Yeah.
I also had the opportunity early when I was working at Travel and Leisure to edit Gail Green. She wrote a series of stories for me. She was amazing. And I sent her to Vietnam. She did a beautiful piece for me on eating in Hanoi. I feel like there was all the things that I still continue to be passionate about, all the things that are still the guiding lights in my life are the things that were established at Travel and Leisure. So it was a really, really seminal moment in my life and career. I ended up getting married to Peter, my husband, who I met at Travel and Leisure, who is a travel and food writer. And so we're very indebted to Nancy and to my time at TNL.
I love it because I feel that's when I got to know you and Peter when you were at Travel and Leisure, and I guess I was starting into PR. But let me ask you my question from my last guest, because it sort of answered it, but kind of ties into all this. But on episode 381, I had on Valerie Chang Kumpa. She's an award-winning Miami-based chef with restaurants Itamai, B-Side, and Maddie's. I don't know if you've been to these, but I haven't been to B-Side, actually. It's in the 1-800-LUCKY food hall, but Itamai and Maddie's, favorite restaurants down in Miami. Love them.
I'm going to have to go.
Yeah, really amazing. Peruvian, Japanese cuisine. Okay. So she wants to know, curious to know how people who may not have traditional background in food or kitchens, where does the love begin? How did you pick this as your career? What moment did you say, this is what I want to do? This is what drives me. How does it drive me? What led you to risk on this as a career? So you've touched on this a bit, but
I think it is actually, it's interesting, especially in the context of what I do now, which is, primarily, at least in my TV life, go on TV and talk about food. I'm really interested in the intersection of food and culture and this idea of how we access shared experiences through food. And so I've always, obviously I didn't go to culinary school. I don't have a traditional culinary background. I am a really good home cook, I think. And that comes from growing up in a house where food was a big deal. And my mom is an amazing, amazing cook. She actually crazily made a James Beard house dinner, a Persian dinner, when we first moved here from Paris, even though she's not a chef.
wow.
Yeah, I know. She's maybe she's
Not a lot
the
of people
original.
can say that.
Maybe she's the original over deliverer.
Okay.
So I think that the way that I got lured into this is the fact that obviously I traveled a lot as a very young person. And And the through line was always this passion for beautiful food. So I think it's not just about food, but it is about the act of creating it and the way that it connects you to a place immediately. So for me, I'm a little bit obsessed with breakfast. Kate Crater famously called Peter and me Mr. and Mrs. Breakfast because we're obsessed with breakfast.
What did you have for breakfast today?
Oh,
that you took a picture of?
Oh, that's really good question. I'm
paying attention a little bit.
Wow, you're really on this.
Yes.
We have a little bit of a spin the globe breakfast situation every day. Every day is a different breakfast.
Okay. That's fun.
And this morning it was Persian kuku, which is our frittata. This is a potato and zucchini kuku in a pita with a bunch of herbs and feta cheese.
Wow.
And sweet Persian tea. That was this morning.
All right. Yes, you proved your point. You're into breakfast.
We're really, but also
that sounds amazing.
It was delicious. It was delicious. And actually, I'm going to be cooking it live. The reason was I was making sure the recipe was all coming together because I'm cooking it live tomorrow because Persian New Year is coming, and so which is the first day of spring, and so I wanted to make sure the recipe was going to work out, and it did. And then of course I had it for breakfast.
Cooking it live where?
Oh, on Instagram.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
on Instagram.
Fabulous.
Yeah. But back to the reason I was mentioning breakfast is I think if you sit down and have breakfast in Tokyo, or if you sit down and have breakfast in Saigon, or if you sit down and have breakfast in Istanbul, or the list goes on and on. Every single moment you feel, oh, I get this culture. I understand. If you're having an Israeli breakfast, I get where I am and I get what's happening here. And suddenly it doesn't matter that you don't speak the language. You are immediately in sync with that culture. And to me, I think that's what I love about covering travel through food, which is what I always did. I wasn't covering, we weren't doing restaurant reviews. We weren't, doing dish descriptions. What we were talking about is how do you embrace a destination more deeply by eating in it? And so to me, that's still the way that I travel, the way that I engage in the world. And that's what I think I bring to the table when it comes to our industry is this more cultural point of view of food rather than a strict expertise on whether the knife cuts are correct. I know that too, but that's not my focus. My focus, what the added value that I bring is what does this mean in the context of the bigger picture?
Yeah, I love that. And talking about Instagram or social media or what's happening today. And now a lot of people, I think, are traveling for food or more, and this will tie into your TV expertise, but we're much more knowledgeable about what's happening with food and restaurants because of TV and social media and everything happening. But when you were back with Travel and Leisure, whatever, 20 plus years ago, there wasn't as much of a conversation or coverage of this. You were really ahead of the curve.
I can't even believe how we got our information. So we had these stringers, which are basically reporters that you have in all these different destinations. And they would give us a monthly report on what was happening in their destination.
Not hourly,
not by minute. And then all of those meetings that I had, all of those lunch meetings and the events that I would go to, I would just ask people a million questions. I'd be like, oh, where have you been eating? What are you excited about you're coming from Switzerland? What's happening there? And so on and so on. And then of course we had amazing writers like Anya von Bremsen, who was, I think, the first person to write about Ferran Adria in the US for Travel and Leisure. And people who traveled in the same way, and they were feeding us information. And so, but it is interesting to be at a magazine that covers travel and being the one subject matter expert in food. So the entire globe, and it was all on my shoulders. Not that I'm saying it was a tough job, but I definitely had to be,
it's a lot.
I had to make sure that I was keeping us up to date, because the worst thing that could happen is, for example, my editor-in-chief, Nancy, would be going to India and she would say, Nilou, where should I be eating? And if I didn't know, the job does not stay with you for long. And so there was a lot of pressure to just stay on top of everything, which is why I make these lists all the time now, where any place anyone wants to go, I've got a list.
I love it. No, it's amazing. You're amazing. Talk a little about Food and Wine, and I'm curious that stage of your career, because that's a big deal.
I mean, I can't even believe that I was lucky enough to be at both those brands. Incredible opportunity to kind of evolve the coverage at both. I think Epicurious, when I got there, had traditionally been really just very focused on maybe more domestic recipes. And I think I really wanted to kind of expand the aperture. And I think I continued to do that. Of course, it was totally different. I'd been working in print. And so obviously I was originally in online, but then I went to print, and then I stayed in print for a long time. And so to be in a purely digital play was really fun. And so I got to work with a lot of really smart people, a woman named Danica Lowe, who is incredible. And she taught me a lot. And this was a definite learning experience for me working at Epicurious. And then Food and Wine, in the interim, I actually left publishing altogether and became, this is my favorite job title I've ever had, Director of Inspiration.
That's a good one.
Isn't that good? For a hotel group that's part of Hilton called Conrad, which is like kind of their kind of hip hotel brand. And for a few years, I was basically helping them to shape an editorial platform that was going to be an added value to their guests. And so this was, I mean, I can't, back then, it was very church and state. You didn't leave publishing to go work for a brand. That was like kind of not done. And so I loved this job though. I got to go all around the world and work with teams at individual hotels from Hong Kong, to Lisbon or the Algarve, and basically help them to reconsider the way they were engaging with their customers in a more authentic way. I mean, everyone throws around the word authentic, but when you realize, I don't know about you, I do this every time I'm going up in the elevator with the bellman who's taking me to my room. All I'm asking is, where should I be eating, right? And like, I don't want them to give me the recommendations of like, oh, our concierge suggests you go to this, Café d'Angleterre, down the street. I'm like, no, tell me where you go to eat, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the premise of this entire gig that I was doing with Conrad, was how do we engage with real, authentic intel from locals? So it was like live like a local through the Conrad lens. And I loved working on that so much. We created a bunch of itineraries that were, if you have 1 hour, if you have 3 hours, if you have 5 hours, and different interests. So whether you're in London or in Hong Kong. And then we also created a new language for them to use when any guest would ask them a question. So rather than get terrified, they would have just some ways in which they could be honest and authentic in the way they were engaging, which, I mean, I don't know anything about training people in hospitality, but I got so into it. It was so fun because I was like, oh, this is how I want to be treated. Why shouldn't everyone get treated this way?
Yeah, no, I love it.
For every front of house person who's listening, they're like, why do they put her in charge of that? I was like, I don't know. But it was a great combo of again, back to learning. It was definitely an opportunity to learn about something totally different than what I've done before.
Yeah, it's like I travel a lot, but listening to you, I don't think I travel that much, because when I'm like, you've traveled more than me.
Wow.
But it's like, yeah, surrounding myself with people in the food and travel space. It's like, it's a part of what we do. And it's awesome. I love it. And I love discovering new places and learning and experiencing.
I think that one of the things that being an editor / young reporter person has allowed me is this kind of fearlessness of, when I'm traveling, I always want to know what's happening in that destination. So I approach it like it's an assignment. I'm not even a writer. My husband is. But so when we would go during the 14 years that we worked at Travel and Leisure, he was freelance and I was full-time at the office. I would do my job, and then he would get these unbelievable assignments. I mean, we were very lucky. He got to go to Vietnam. We got to go to Mauritius. We got to go to lots of incredible places. But a lot of people don't realize that if you are reporting a travel feature for a magazine, it's not like being on vacation. You have to hustle every single minute. You land, you're jet lagged, and then you get into a car and you're like, how many things are there that I can actually put into this article that will be legitimately great? So when someone shows up here, they won't be disappointed. And so now, I mean, even on our honeymoon, which was a long time ago now, we were in Bali. And then I think on day 4 of our honeymoon, we're like, can we go report some stuff? Because that's, you've got the fever. We love to explore. We love to be the first to be someplace and check it out. We were just back in Bali. I was shooting something for Silver Sea. And we weren't even meant to be seeing Will Goldfarb. And next thing you know, we're meeting with Will Goldfarb. He's opened a brand new hotel and we're shooting him at his brand new hotel that isn't even open yet. It's not opening for another 3 weeks. But I was like, once you have that frisson, you can't resist it.
I'm on the exact same page. I do the same thing. And there's something about, because I do a lot of solo travel, I like the planning part of it, like figuring it out, where am I going to stay? Where am I going to eat? Like that's a whole part of the experience and learning. And I don't know, it's, I'm with you. When I'm somewhere I can't, I just have to do as much as I could possibly do and go for it. Cause it's like the opportunity, right?
You're like five lunches. Yes. I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we're going to have to take a break soon, but before we do, you mentioned TV.
Yeah.
You started doing TV early on. So you have a lot of experience, which has now, I would say, prepared you for all the TV you've done in the past year, 5 years, 10 years, because you've done a lot. You've been a judge on Bravo's Top Chef and also on Food Network's Chopped. You're doing now Netflix Iron Chef, which I started watching a couple of the episodes because I was behind, and it's awesome.
It really, Iron Chef was an amazing experience. I'm actually so kind of sad that it's not coming back for a second season. I would have been so happy.
It's not?
No,
Okay.
I know it's such a bummer, but I think if you haven't seen it, if you are a fan of competition cooking shows and you love people like Dominique Crenn and Marcus Samuelsson, it's a really fun show to watch. There's some really incredible kitchen pyrotechnics. And I was lucky enough to judge with Andrew Zimmern, who's one of my all-time favorite humans. And talk about being a font of information. He is just somebody who I think I know a lot. And then I sit next to him. I'm like, okay, I need to learn more.
Yeah, no, it was great. He was, and I interviewed him just a couple episodes ago before South Beach Food and Wine Festival. He's great. You're great. Yeah. It's, what's it like judging on TV? I mean, what's that whole day in the life? I mean, what's the stuff people don't know?
Okay. Some stuff that people don't know. It's totally real, i.e. They don't change the food. It's what they cook is what we eat. That's, I think, a big deal. People always wondering whether you actually eat the stuff they're making. And yes, you do, whether it's good or bad. If you're lucky enough that Dominique Crenn is cooking, it's not going to be bad. If someone who's maybe a little bit more nervous in a cooking competition environment, it might not be that great, and you still have to figure out how to give them feedback that feels not necessarily kind, that's not the point, but constructive. And so I think it's hard. That's actually hard. Giving feedback that in a very vulnerable place, someone who's on camera and has, just worked their tail off for, half an hour to cook something, and then you have to give them feedback. And even if it's terrible, you still have to give them feedback where they can feel like they're going to grow from it. So that's something. Early mornings for women, especially, when you do a cooking competition, all the cooking needs to be done in that same day, right? So you don't come back for a second day and do it, which means that in order for the day to be reasonably a reasonable length, you've got to start very early, which means that if you've got to do hair and makeup,
you got to start
it's really early.
Before the sun comes up.
Really early. Yeah. So I often, will be leaving my wheels up, as they say, at like 5 a.m, sometimes a little bit earlier than that. So that's early.
Yeah.
You have to eat a lot, so depending, like when I've done Top Chef, especially when there's a bigger set of competitors before it gets narrowed down. It's just a lot of eating. There's a lot of dishes to taste. And so you get really full. It's a little bit of like an endurance exercise.
Yeah.
And you have to give everybody the respect of eating their food. So you have to actually taste it. And if you're going to give feedback on it, or especially if someone's going to go home.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a serious job.
It's a serious job. And then it's amazing to watch people who didn't anticipate succeeding in that environment, doing well and winning, and giving somebody the opportunity to have their moment in the spotlight. And the way it shifts people's careers is amazing.
Yeah, no, it really is. Do you want to do, or are you doing more TV in the future?
I am doing more TV in the future, and I love it. I love it's one hat that I wear, and it's a fun hat. It's nice. I enjoy doing it. It's so different than anything else that I do. You know, most of the stuff that I do is completely behind the scenes. And so to do stuff that's like show pony is a little bit fun. Why not?
No, you're awesome. I mean, you're I think people who are great at what they do, or especially when you see people on TV and they make it look easy because they're good at it. And it's not easy. I mean, you got a camera on you, you're giving feedback, you're trying food, it's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the shows you've been on are so well produced and edited, and it's like, it's really, they're wonderful productions. So
I'm a fan. I'm also someone who watches the shows. So I mean, I think that it's amazing how in the time that shows like Top Chef have been on, shows like Chopped have been on, it's changed the entire dynamic of what is considered an accolade in the industry. Like now let's say you're a James Beard winner and you're a Chopped champion. Those things can actually affect like a big change in your career. So that's big. I'm very honored to be a tiny part of this whole process.
Well, on that note, and congratulations on all of it. I mean, it's really incredible. And I look forward to watching whatever TV shows you are on in the future. But we're going to take a little break, and we'll come back. We'll play my speed round. We'll talk some industry news, my solo dining experience, and the final question. So stay with us. This is All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. Welcome back to All in the Industry on Heritage Radio Network. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer, and my guest today is Nilou Motamed. She's an Emmy-nominated TV personality who has been named one of Adweek's 30 most influential people in food, and she's a seeker of deliciousness.
Oh yeah, it's true. I am.
That's like the real short, concise, and to the point and meaningful bio.
I mean, if it's not delicious, why bother? I get very irked when I have a bad meal. Like when we're traveling and we sit down at something like, that perfect looking French bistro that has all the things that you're like, okay, check. The chairs are cute. The awning is cute. The servers are wearing the right length apron. And then you get a croque monsieur that's terrible and it's not poilâne bread. And you're like, why bother? What a waste. So I hate to waste a meal.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel very fortunate. I feel like I usually have great meals or exceptionally great meals. I don't have that many, like, not great moments, but
even when
it happens.
Even when you're traveling?
I think I'm pretty good at picking, but
great.
Yeah, I don't know. I do pretty well, but it's not all 100% hits every time, but I feel like I do pretty well. I'm gonna
need some of your lists then.
No,
Shari.
well, we'll share. But I need your list, but I'm happy to share mine. I figure it out as I go, but I'm usually probably relying on people like you who have laid down some of the groundwork from back in the day.
I think the thing that is overwhelming for me now is how much there is out there. There's such a glut of information. And so it used to be that, Not to say that the only information can come from experts, i.e., magazine editors at all, but it used to be that there were places that you would go to, people whose opinions you trusted, and then that's where you would get your intel. And now it's like a little bit more of like a Rotten Tomatoes style of like, there's just a glut of information. And so you have to kind of look at, you have to kind of squint at Instagram and try to figure out like if you see a pattern of some sort, and read 800 different reviews. And I'm overwhelmed by it. I kind of want 5 recs. I don't want 50.
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, but yeah, you kind of got to like who you trust or your sources. And if there's a consistency, like everyone's like, you got to get the burger, you got to get the burger, you get the burger.
You get the burger, which is why actually my husband and I, as part of a consultancy, part of our story collective, we're starting something that I think it's a little too soon for me to talk about, but I think it might help people who are feeling overwhelmed with getting some great recommendations.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay.
Look at me. I shared it here first, Shari.
Breaking news on All in the Industry. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's exciting. Yeah. I look forward to hearing more.
I look forward to sharing more.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's going to lead us right into the speed round.
Great. I'm ready.
Okay. So what this is I name a couple things and you get to pick your preference, such as chocolate or vanilla.
Okay.
Here we go. Eat in at home or eat out at a restaurant?
Eat out at a restaurant.
Indoor dining or al fresco dining?
Oh, okay. I'm going to say al fresco, but then of course my mind went straight to the Amalfi Coast. So I'm saying if I'm in the Amalfi Coast, I'd like to eat outdoors. If I'm sitting on Orchard Street, indoors.
Yeah. That part of my speed round that I added in during the pandemic because all of a sudden we didn't have as many options of where we could eat. But yeah, I think that a lot of times it is location or weather wise, but I will meet you at the Amalfi Coast.
Yes. If we can go to Lo Scoglio, if you have not been there.
I haven't been, but I went to a pop-up dinner they did here a couple years ago, which was excellent. So I met the chef and them, and I've been meaning to go.
Antonia is a dream, and it's a long-held family restaurant. The father, Peppino, this is not a speed round at all. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Has farms everything that grows everything that they serve that isn't coming from the sea, and he literally brings it down from the farm that day. It is definitely worth seeking out.
Okay, yeah, I know, and everyone listening, now too. Got to go. Okay, here we go. Continuing. Wine, beer, cocktail, mocktail, or champagne?
Tequila?
Tequila.
I think tequila, mezcal, natural wine, orange wine. People have mixed feelings about that. I love it. Skin contact, quirky wine. Champagne. I mean, if you can, sure, champagne too. Do I have to? Yeah. So I guess the only thing I'm not really drinking a lot of is beer. Not a lot of beer in my life.
Okay.
So that was a multiple choice question, right?
Yeah, it was. Don't pick one. Pick them all. It's awesome. Tasting menu or a la carte?
A la carte. Do you want me to add why?
Go ahead. Go for it.
Except for it. A la carte, unless it's omakase sushi and then tasting menu.
Well, omakase sushi, yes.
Right?
Okay, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Oh, the reason is, and I have to explain everything because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. But
there are no rules here.
I love the smallness of a tasting menu. I just don't like how many dishes there are. Yeah, it can be a lot. And then I feel like I want to respect everybody. And I feel like by the time I get to dessert, I'm too full. And then there's a pastry chef who's so sad about the fact that I'm not enjoying their dessert because I'm not at that point. I just want to go home and go to bed. Yeah. So I think it's actually would be, I say this to chefs all the time when I'm judging, and I say it's really important to edit yourself. And I think it is true that you can throw the kitchen sink at people and give them so many amazing flavors, but sometimes it's about maybe less is more, especially when it comes to tasting menus.
Yeah, I hear you.
But then I'm going to say I do this for a living. Other people who only go out to one special meal a year, they want you to throw everything at them. You know? And so I respect that people want to have that experience. For me, I want to just pick what I want to eat and have it be a little bit more curtailed. But if anyone ever wants to send me out caviar or uni, please do.
All right. We got it. And I get it. And that's, I think sometimes the tasting menu is nice because you don't have to think, you know, you can just like, you're in the chef's hands, but
I'm always thinking.
It can be a lot of food and but great explanation. Okay. We'll keep going. How about, small plates or large plates?
Small plates. Taste more things.
Okay. Communal table or chef's counter?
Chef's counter, I love. I love being able to watch the chef's work. That feels like dinner theater.
It's kind of what you do on TV.
It is a little bit.
I don't know. I know Iron Chef. It's like, it's like chef's table.
You're 100%.
Your own chef's table.
In fact, your own private chef's table. Yeah, I think that that is really interesting. I've never thought about it, but strangely, it doesn't feel to me being at a chef's counter like a busman's holiday. I don't feel like I'm working, also because I'm not a chef.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just love watching how exact they are and how it's incredible. It's magic.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Tipping or all-inclusive charge?
I like to tip. I also like to over tip. So I feel like, I like to have my own, do it myself.
Okay. Tahdig or paella?
Oh, well, obviously tahdig because I'm from Iran.
Yeah, I had to give you that.
Thank you.
One there, and I wanted to bring it up on the show. So
tahdig is, if for anyone who's not familiar, is the crunchy bottom layer of rice, Persian rice, and you flip it, and it's a little bit of a little show. And so I agree with you; it has a little bit of a similarity to paella because of sokarat, of the crunchy part of the paella. And I'm always drawn, whether I'm having Korean food and there's crunchy rice or there's paella and sokarat, I'm always drawn to anything that's crunchy with rice. But tahdig is very, very special.
I've never made it, but watching that flip is so cool.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it makes it like magical as a dish. So you see that happen, then you just want to dive in.
The funny thing about the flip is before Instagram, Persian moms were flipping rice without anyone watching. And now it's gotten to the point where I can't have a dinner party without people wanting to watch me do the flip. Yeah. And it's not hard to make the rice. I have a tutorial on my Instagram, but honestly, it's just about having a nonstick Dutch oven. That's the only thing that you need as long as you got a nonstick Dutch oven, then you can do it. It's super easy. Yeah.
Good to know. Okay. I got 3 more.
Okay.
Judging cooking on TV or hosting a dinner party or breakfast party or whatever you're going to have at home off camera. Would you rather be on camera or off? I guess is the question.
I think off camera, realistically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cheese plate or dessert?
Cheese plate all the way.
Ooh, strong opinion on that one.
Very strong. Yeah. I'm a savory girl across the board. So yeah, dessert is not my thing. People who say I couldn't live without dessert, I can live without dessert. No problem. I can't live without cheese though.
I do find I think it's the savory or the sweet, like one way or the other. I'm more sweet. I would do dessert.
Yeah.
But
I would do cheese and fruit.
Okay.
If I was going to go.
Get your ideal situation.
Yeah, that would be like when you're in Paris and that super old fashioned guéridon is like rolling around the restaurant, some sort of fine dining restaurant. All I'm thinking about is when am I going to get the cheese? Because it's like just the perfectly aged, beautiful specimens, all raw milk. I mean, that's pretty glorious.
It is. Last one is Manhattan or Brooklyn. Sorry.
Brooklyn. Well, I live in Brooklyn. We are currently in Brooklyn. I think that I love Manhattan. Manhattan has given me a million opportunities. I'm a little looser in Brooklyn, which I like because I'm pretty all my jobs are pretty intense and I like chilling out in Brooklyn.
I love it. That's the game.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
Yay.
I love hearing your answers. You're the best. Okay, so for industry news, I was thinking about this. I can't believe this is episode 382. I've done a lot of shows. I don't think I've ever done an industry news on an article that I placed or I pitched, and I'm a part of this story a little bit. But here we go. The New York Times, a gem in Central Park reopens. It was the headliner by Florence Fabricant in her Off the Menu column. And it came out last week. And this is on the new Central Park Boathouse, which reopened this past Monday. They had been closed since December 2022, and they're now open with new management. Legends Hospitality is leading the team. There's a new executive chef, Adam Fiskus, and consulting chef, Dave Pasternak, and they're my client. I'm doing PR for the Central Park Boathouse. So I did reach out to Florence and get this piece. And it's big news this week. I've been at the Boathouse every day with NBC's there, CBS, New York One. It's like we're getting a lot of amazing press, including this awesome piece by Florence. And I just feel really lucky to be working on this as it's an iconic restaurant, and it's now reopened. It's refreshed and reimagined. It's a new menu and new team. And so I'm excited. So that's the news this week.
I love this news, and I love celebrating New York. So when I moved from Iran, I moved to Paris, and then from Paris, I moved to New York in 1983. And since then, New York has been my home, and I feel very much like a New Yorker, even though I feel like an Iranian as well. And so all of this talk about New York being dead, I am a firm disagreeer.
New York's not dead.
New York is not dead.
Fine dining's not dead. Print's not dead.
Yeah,
none of it's dead.
Exactly. And so I think storytelling is alive and well. And the story of the Boathouse is incredible. And the opportunity to make memories in New York, overlooking one of the most iconic views, I'm super psyched. I also saw there's a brand new burger on that menu.
Yes, I tried it. Delicious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's like some things happening with burgers in New York that I don't agree with.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But I feel like that burger looked to me like it was correct.
It's a great burger. The menu they're doing, it's calling it Central Park Continental. Mm-hmm. So it's a continental influence. It's a diverse menu from oysters Rockefeller to spaghetti with lobster, and there's fish and chips at lunch, and it's New York cheesecake, and the food's great. I mean, everything I've tried, and I've been there a bunch and seen also a lot of the dishes I haven't tried yet, and they all look fantastic.
I think that more iconic New York spots for us to spend time in. I'm so happy. Honestly, it gives me a lot of joy. The fact, like, for example, Andrew Carmelini's new restaurant. Mm-hmm. I love that Cafe Carmelini, and I just love, how he's bringing classic elegant dining to that area of the city that hasn't had it. I just think that there's so much dynamism and creativity, especially in this hospitality space in New York. And yay for all of it. Every single time I feel like I'm so pleased that this is my home.
Yeah, me too. I live near Central Park, and I go to the park a lot, go running in the park. And I was in the park this weekend near the Boathouse, and it's just amazing overhearing conversations as everyone's walking by, and they, talking about it or knowing it's reopened. And then the people coming in or talking to us or talking to me, or like everyone has these memories of these special occasion, or they had this date there, they celebrated someone's anniversary or wedding or like birthday. I mean, there's a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, like in the daytime with the lake and the sun when it starts setting. I mean, it's really a magical place.
New Yorkers deserve it. I think that's the thing. And there in other cities around the world, there's lots of places where sort of the intersection of an iconic destination in the city and a restaurant meet. And for some reason, we don't have that much of that in New York. Like if you think about the Eiffel Tower, there's amazing restaurants where you have views of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. You don't really have that much of that in New York. And so I think the Boathouse is the perfect place to return to, whether you've been there before. I mean, spring is coming. Can you imagine with the cherry blossoms happening
Yeah.
and walking around the park and getting a cocktail at the boathouse? I want to do it right away.
Well, we need to meet there.
Okay.
No,
that was me casually mentioning it so that we could get something on the schedule.
No, I was going to say that before. You didn't have to tease me with that. No, I would love to meet you there, and it doesn't even have to be once. We could have lunch. We can meet for a drink, and they're also it's not open right now, but soon with spring, their dockside dining's going to reopen. They were open briefly for the end of summer fall season, but they're coming back with a new fresh menu. And the boats, I don't know, have you been on a boat?
No, I've never done it.
Oh my God, it's so fun.
Row?
Yes. I mean, I'm not very good at it, I discovered, because I just jumped on a boat last summer and then all of a sudden I realized, I'm like, wait, how do I row? And I figured it out, but yeah, we could get someone to take us, but it's lovely to be out there on the lake. And
Dreamy.
It's really special, and I'm excited. So congratulations to the whole Central Park Boathouse team and legends, because they've been working on this, refreshing the space and getting it up to par. And I'm excited for people to come.
I can't wait.
We will have our date there.
Done.
And and thank you, Florence Fabric, and everyone who's been interested in covering it. I've never, I mean, I've been doing PR now with my company over 20 years, and I've never had a client quite like this, because there isn't, as you said,
right?
It's special.
It's one of a kind for sure.
Definitely. So come visit. That's it's in Central Park. If for anyone who doesn't know, and the closest entrance is by 72nd Street and 5th Avenue. That's where you would enter. It's a few minute walk from there. Okay, so it's time for my solo dining experience. So This week I'm flashing back to a recent trip to Miami, and it is at Walrus Rodeo. Here is the rundown. The location: 5143 Northeast 2nd Avenue in the Little Haiti area of Miami. It's a little north of the Design District, if anyone has a reference point. The concept: so it's contemporary wood-fired cuisine with old world wine and relaxed hospitality. The chef and owners: so the chef, Jeff Maxfield, he's partnered with chefs Alex Meyer and Luciana Giangrandi of Boadè. I don't know if you know Boadè, but that's been, it's a Michelin-starred restaurant that opened a few years ago, and that's a modern Italian restaurant. And they're both located in this, it's a little strip mall in Miami. It's like the one side, one's on one side of the parking lot, one's on the other. So why'd I go? Well, this spot opened about a year ago, and Miami's my hometown. I hadn't been yet, and so I made it a point I wanted to go because I was a big fan of Boadè. So my experience. So this is about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know, losing track of time. I was down in Miami for the South Beach Wine and Food Festival, and I arranged to also do a book talk. I have a new book out called Chef Wise, and I did a talk.
You can buy it at booksellers anywhere near you.
Thank you. You can. And I did a book talk at Books and Books, which is a local Miami spot, has a few locations now. And I did it at their Coconut Grove location, which had a bit of an attachment to my, I don't know, growing up in Miami. We used to hang out in the Grove a lot. So I got to do this book talk there. It was Friday night. It was really great. We had a full house. Some old longtime friends from Miami were there. My parents were there and their friends, and it was really great. And so thank you to the Books and Books team. And I brought that up because this was a 7:00 event, and I made a 9:45 dinner reservation that night because I was like, I know I'm going to need to unwind a little and eat. So I got up there literally at 9:45 and I was starving. I was hungry. And so I went in. The restaurant was still busy. I mean, by the time I left, it was, slowed down a little bit. But I got a seat right at the chef's counter in front of their wood fired cooking. Everything's done from this wood fired oven, which was cool. So I love sitting at chef's counter. So I sat there. I had a really lovely server. His name was Francesco. He told me to call him Soto. Anyways, he was great. Guided me through the menu. I ordered, I relaxed, I had a great time. And when I was leaving, I ran into a couple friends who were down for the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. And so I ended up sitting with them and having a few bites of their dessert. So my solo dining experience didn't end solo. So what did I get? Well, I got the maitake mushroom with schmaltz, serrano beans, and Tuscan kale. I also got a special off-the-menu lasagna, which I think I was lucky to get that late in the night because apparently it sells out really fast. It was mustard green lasagna layered with rich lamb ragu and salty grana padano cheese and stracchino. And I wanted to get the pizza, but I skipped on the pizza because it was this giant pizza and I'm by myself and I already was saved room for dessert. I decided because, as we said, I have the sweet tooth. So then I also got, they had a churro dessert that they said you could get a single piece churro. It was their American pie is what it was called. It had ginger snap apples and pecans. So that's what I got. My take was a really great meal. I mean, it was all really comforting flavors. I mean, the mushroom went really well with the lasagna. I mean, they brought it first, but then I still had it when I was still eating it when the lasagna came, and it just everything complemented each other. Just rich flavors, but not too heavy. Like I didn't finish the whole lasagna, but I loved it, and I was glad I saved room for dessert because it was perfect. I really love at restaurants when there's an option or something for a solo diner. So this was a really nice dessert to have, and it was just all delicious. So the ambiance, it's a casual neighborhood spot. It's like rustic. It's mostly woods, and there's a bar up front and an open kitchen in the back corner where I was. It had about 5 or 6 seats. Perfect for, I'd say, solo dining or dinner with friends. Interesting tidbit. So the name Walrus Rodeo apparently does not mean anything. I saw the chef when I was leaving and I asked him about it. And he's like, we just picked a fun name that wasn't being used. And then I saw on their Instagram, it says intentionally playful, original, and ambiguous. Walrus Rodeo is whatever you want it to be. So that's what it is. Personal fun fact. So on this Miami trip, some other meals I had from my last guest, Valerie Chang, I did go to her collab dinner she did with South Beach Food and Wine Festival with Chabela Koss and Anna Castro at Maddie's, and that was awesome. And I did do that. That was solo, and that was great. Of course, I had some stone crabs when I was down there. And then it was also my birthday tied at the end of this trip. So I flew down to Key West, and I spent 2 days there. And basically, I just had conch fritters, fresh seafood, and key lime pie, on repeat.
Love.
Yeah, all good stuff. I'd say if you're going to go, there's a place called the Conch Shack has really good conch fritters. And then I had Key Lime Bakery and Kermit's Key Lime Shop.
I've been to Kermit's.
You've been?
It's really good.
Cool. When were you there?
Oh my God, so long ago.
I hadn't been to Key West since I was about 20, which was a long time ago. So I really wanted to get down there. So it was cool. Yeah, and I feel like that's just what you had to and what I wanted to eat. Like nothing more. Just it was good stuff. Okay, so the cost of my meal at Walrus Rodeo was $55. That is including a 2% healthcare service charge, which at some point on my show, we should just dive into. I see these healthcare service charges a lot of times in California. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I have.
So that was added, but that's not including tax and gratuity that I also paid. Would I go back? Yes. Their website is walrusrodeo.com and Instagram at Walrus Rodeo. Woohoo! There you go.
I love it. I want to go there.
You should go. Yeah, it's great. I wasn't sure. I don't know if you've been down to Miami anytime recently.
No, it's been not since before the pandemic. So It's been a minute.
They're great spots. I mean, it's Boa De has gotten, and that's BOIA, new word DE. It's gotten a fair amount of press. It's a great, really great restaurant, and this is their new spot. So having grown up in Miami, it's these neighborhoods where restaurants are popping up are just all new. There was the Design District and Wynwood and Midtown, and none of that existed when I was a kid. So it's exciting.
I remember going to Coconut Grove and getting a T-shirt. That was my big out, and I wore that oh my gosh, until it was in tatters.
Yeah, well, the Grove has gone through stages of being. I mean, people have said, "Oh, the Grove's dead." There was moments of that, but it's back now, full swing, and it's awesome. I love that area.
Nice.
Okay, so It's time for the final question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here we go. My next guest is Chef Richie Lin, and he's the founder and CEO of Moom Hospitality Group, which includes Moom in Taiwan, where alongside Long Chang and Ken Ward, the trio have developed novel ways of using Taiwanese produce and local ingredients in a distinctive Nordic way. Their vision was awarded with a Michelin star in 2018 in the guide's first top Taipei edition. Moom is currently ranked number 45 on Asia's 50 best restaurants and received the Sustainable Restaurant Award in 2022. So, Nilou, I'd like you to ask a question for Richie, and I'd also like to know, have you been to Taiwan?
Okay, I've not been to Taiwan.
Okay.
And I'm mad about it. So
me either.
Yeah,
Let's do something about that.
Yeah. So I am really interested for myself to ask Richie this. So he, as I read, is from Hong Kong and then went to Taiwan and became kind of enamored with Taiwanese ingredients and Taiwanese food. So I would love it if Richie could give us like the elevator pitch for what Taiwanese food is and what it is that he finds so special about the ingredients, because they're really focusing on celebrating and highlighting ingredients that are not well known. And if he can talk about technique, I don't want to compare it to Chinese food. So I want Richie to give us their take and how he would describe it, because I'm very interested. The Taiwanese food that I've had in the US, I'm obsessed with. But what they're doing is obviously very, very fine dining focused. So Richie, let us know what's going on there, because I'm eager to get there. I'm due back. I've just, since I hadn't been back to Asia since before the pandemic, we just went to Bali. We're planning a trip to Seoul. I can add Taiwan to that list.
Well, I usually share after I go places, but with my book out, I'm seizing opportunities, and Richie's in my book, and I am going to Seoul. I'm going to go to the Asia's 50 Best.
Yes.
Which is coming up soon. So I'm planning to do this interview in person.
Okay, well, that's okay. Well, way to go. That's amazing.
But I was going to ask you too if you'd been to Seoul, because I've never been, and I'm like, I like take your list.
So I will tell you, you know who you need to ask for a list is the Adamix. Yeah, the Adamix team. And
I got it.
Okay, you did.
That was the first person I reached out to. You, Ellie and JP.
I would like that list. If you can share that list,
I will send that your way. I haven't done my research really yet, but I'm really excited.
What you need to do is leave enough time, because besides the eating, there's going to be all the beauty stuff you need to do.
Okay.
Ellie has told me,
okay,
don't skimp on all the other stuff.
I will not skimp on all the other stuff. I'm so excited. I mean, it's a long way to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just sort of seizing these moments. And Richie has been, just with my correspondence with him, just so delightful. And one day I would like to get to Taiwan too and go to his restaurant, but he's going to be there, and at least I'll get to meet him and give him a hug. And
and ask him my question.
Ask him your question, the most important part.
Yes.
So thank you. I wish we could just go on for another, I don't know, few days here. It's so delightful chatting with you, and congratulations on everything you've achieved. I mean, we touched on a lot, but we didn't touch on I mean, you've done so much, and you're very inspirational, and congratulations on it all.
Oh, Shari, it's such a pleasure. I can't believe that we've come up together. We've really come through this industry together, and it's wonderful to see you thriving. And I'm thrilled to have been able to spend some time with you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you and you joining me today. And I look forward to all the exciting things that whatever you have coming up, because I'm sure it's going to be fantastic, whatever it is. And I love how like both of our paths like kind of like planned but unplanned, right?
Yes. Our worlds intersect. I'll see you. Well, if you want to learn how to make Persian rice, I'll see you on Instagram.
I do. And I want to be invited over for breakfast too, but girls can dream.
Yeah. Well, first we're going to have a cocktail at the boathouse.
Yeah. We have plans.
We have lots of things to do. We have lots to do.
Yeah. No, but thank you. Thank you so much. My guest today has been Nilou Motamed. She's an Emmy-nominated TV personality. She's a seeker of deliciousness. You can find out more about her at niloumotamed.com. That's NILOUMOTAMED.com, and same Instagram at Nilou Motamed. You can follow me at Shari Bayer at Bayer PR and at All Industry. My Facebook page is All in the Industry. My websites are BayerPublicRelations.com, ShariBayer.com, and allintheindustry.com. All of our shows are archived at heritageradionetwork.org. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Check out my new book, Chef Wise, Life Lessons from Leading Chefs Around the World by Fiden. It's available wherever books are sold. Thanks to my engineer today, Armin. Thanks again to Nilou. And thanks to our lovely publicist, Daisy. I'm your host and producer, Shari Bayer. I will be back soon with a new show. And thank you, as always, for being part of All in the Industry. Bye. All in the Industry is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.